Start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Monday, April 4th, 12:30 p.m. Start with public forum. Anybody in the public? Have a seat there. State your name for the people online. You are Brian, but
The microphone anywhere?
it's right there. New and improved.
My name is Brian Stuckey. I understand that you will later look at a report of a Planning Commission memo from Russ A.V. Consultant. I've seen and will comment on parts of that report. First, I commend Russ A.V. for his work. He looked at certain issues on wind turbines as directed by your county commission. One, on population density. Note that on his map, the townships containing the Diamond Vista and Sunflower wind projects are among the least populated areas of the county. The 4 west townships that are being considered for expansion are among the highest in population density. It doesn't take much to realize that where there are more people, there will be more problems and objections, as shown with the Gossel City Council survey. Some locations are good for wind turbines, not here. 2, in the section on water quality and groundwater impacts, the report says the bases or foundations can indirectly affect water usage and quality. However, these impacts are generally considered minimal compared to other industries like agriculture or manufacturing. I think he is underestimating the impact. With the high water table in the western part of the county, any construction that deep will immediately get into and contaminate the water table. 3, on other potential impacts of renewable energy systems, visual and aesthetic impact. A clarification. One term I hear thrown around a lot is the word aesthetics. Most people think, well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and one person's opinion is as good as anyone else's. Some are for, some are against. That is not what aesthetics means. As an art teacher for 38 years, I can tell you, I've had some training. Aesthetics is the study of visual things, composition, balance, elements, and other things. In short, what you have in this case is juxtaposition. That is, 2 things placed together that have nothing to do with each other. Something is out of place. What you have is an industrial installation placed into a rural or natural environment. 500-foot tall machinery placed into an area with green grass, green crops, green trees, blue sky. It is simply out of place. The sight of it is jarring. This ruins the aesthetics, especially with people around. You can deal with this with a visual impact assessment, as Mr. Avey mentions on his last page. And then number 4, in this report, I see nothing studied on the potential impact of wind turbines on the Hillsborough Airport. From what I've learned from licensed pilots, they don't want to fly anywhere within 5 miles of wind turbines. If there are any turbines placed in Liberty Township, that would effectively shut down the Hillsborough Airport. So looking forward to your discussion. Thank you.
Any other public comments in the room, online? Close public forum. Move on to agenda approval. Is there anything we need to add?
I do have a change to the dump truck bids will be on next week.
Okay.
So I have that under the administrative area at the top. And then I also need to have an executive session added for hiring.
Okay.
It
don't know if you have.
has to be executive, so no, I don't think so.
Anybody else? Okay, move forward with the agenda as approved. changes. The outside board reports, usually wait for, if we have any, for commission comments. Planning and zoning. No,
We
administrative.
have administrative business, yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want to do administrative or planning and
Yeah,
zoning?
no, administrative.
Okay, we have the minutes of April 7th.
Everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any questions, concerns, corrections? If not, make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Sure. Okay, next we have 2 invoices for Nelson Fowles that we need to have approved first. The first one is application number 9 in the amount of $22,013.34.
Accept that invoice.
Motion. Second. And a second. Somebody. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain. Bit electrical on that one.
Did you get,
Sure. Do you want him to sign that one?
you wanna just sign on the bottom?
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that for both?
That's the first one.
Okay, the next one is application 10, in the amount of $146,569.80.
I move that we approve the invoice for $146,569.80.
Second one, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll second that one.
You got up.
There was no electrical on that one, so. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Alright, next we have early checks in the amount of $67,949.27, and that does include the application number 9 that you approved for the $22,000.
Questions? If not, make a motion to approve early checks in the amount of $67,949.27.
Second.
Motion in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Okay, we have 3 budgeted transfers that we need approved. We have road and bridge sales tax to capital improvement fund and $229,269.67. And then the road main and improvement 7 mil to capital improvement fund, $120,749.33.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Both?
They're both on the same.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Then we have the third one, road and bridge to special equipment, $166,666.67.
Make a motion to approve. Second. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Are you gonna do the resolution for the townships?
Can we do it, or were we gonna do it under county council?
I can do it under both. You'd like to do it?
Well, I think we may as well get that out of the
Okay.
way. And they've already seen it, so,
Think about it, it'd be better to get it out of the way.
yeah.
Okay. The next would be the resolution for the treasurer bonds required for townships,
Number.
2025-09.
Is there any questions? Or I'll make a motion to approve 2025-09 resolution.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
So you have my report in the packet. Does anyone have questions? Are there any comments that, so in there, the Doyle Creek Watershed project comment information is there. Are there any comments that the board would like me to make on your behalf, or do you wanna handle that individually? for those of you that are, I think that was right after my report.
Yeah.
I guess the issue is just to bring that structure back into compliance, basically.
Well, they're just so this is the project that you all had worked with several months back. I didn't bring all that information forward
okay.
again, so it's just the comment time for is open right now, so. I'm not sure how long it's open. If he says that, I can get specific information back in front of you if you need a refresher on it. But basically what he put in his email is kind of what he's looking for as far as support. Because it's basically saying that the advantages could reduce the flooding in Peabody and other portions of Marion County as part of the Doyle Creek watershed plan and reduce maintenance needs.
Most of this was discussed before the two new commissioners in case they need any more information.
We've worked out all the other details and are moving forward with it. I would be in support of a letter of support
Or just adding a comment on behalf of the commission.
I would make that motion too. Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 5-0. Staff.
Okay. I've given you on the table, it's a colorful sheet. It is time for me to submit the final report to the Treasury on our ARPA funds. We have spent all our funds. I also gave you another less colorful sheet that shows how we spent those funds. So this is just the final report that I need to submit online to Treasury.
Motion to move forward and submit your report.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 5-0.
And then if I can get your signature in the yellow. Thank you. I give you another sheet there on the table that has some numbers on it. I had a request from a commissioner to provide the top 10 taxpayers list. That was included with our bond paperwork, and then I just provided an updated one based on the request from one of the commissioners. So you all have that information, okay? And the tax sale is this coming Thursday. There's information in the packet about what you have to do to bid and all of that. Pre-registration is required. And then I will do a special notice if more than 2 of you are planning to attend that. Does anybody
That's
have
up to me.
plans to? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I would just to see the process, if nothing else.
Okay.
If it works out for me time-wise.
Okay. I'll just
I'll
do.
be going.
I might make it there, I might not. I don't know.
All right.
Time
It's at 10 o'clock.
in the morning.
Are the other commissioners planning to attend? Maybe.
Move me as a maybe.
Okay. So I'll just do the notice then, because 3 of you said you might be there. Okay.
You nosy.
Buy an ice cream.
Changed any? I guess it can change all the way up till that day, can it?
Yes, it can change all the way up to that day. And I don't know the answer to that. Not to my knowledge. I don't believe anything has come off. Okay, I think that was all that I had. except for the executive session later.
Sharon.
Thank you. Alright. Thank you, by the way, for the employee appreciation dinner on Friday. That lunch was very nice, thank you.
Yeah, it was nice.
Appreciate everyone's hard work.
Gotta include Ashley and her crew.
Yes, I think everyone,
Kevin put in a lot of time, I think.
several people behind the scenes that helped out with that, so that's much appreciated too, thank you. Okay, so the first item of business that I have is a conditional use permit request from Mr. Garth Mock, and he's in attendance today. So the protest period has passed. To my knowledge, there have been no valid protests submitted to the county. So the Board of Commissioners has the jurisdiction to make that final determination on this case. This is a request for a short-term rental at 3 Back Bay Court, Marion, Kansas. That's out at the Marion County Lake. In your packets were photos of the residence itself. It is an existing residence. There is off-street parking available. This is about a block off of Lake Shore. It's kind of on one of the back roads there. All proper notification was given in the official county newspaper. Property owner notification letters were sent to everyone within 1,000 feet of the property. I believe you've been provided with a copy of the staff report. At the Planning Commission meeting on January 23rd of 2025, there was a unanimous vote to recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the condition that it be reviewed every year for compliance and the property maintain an annual registration with the county. These conditions of approval are subject to change as there are certain conditions included in the registration that may be updated from time to time. CUP holders will be notified prior to annual registration when conditions have been changed to allow for reasonable time for them to comply. And that's all stated within that annual registration that's also connected to a separate piece of our zoning regulations. Are there any questions on this case?
How many short-term rentals are there out there at Marion County Lake and then also within the county as a whole?
I believe this would be the fourth or fifth one we've had at the county lake, and then 2 or 3 outside of that, just out in the county, in the unincorporated portion of the county.
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the staff recommendation.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Then there's also a resolution that goes with that.
So make a motion to approve the resolution 2025-10. Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so this resolution will be published in the newspaper, and once that has been completed, then that will be the final step in that approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are you ready for the next item?
Yep.
Okay, so just to give a little bit of background, in September of 2024, the Board of Commissioners, through Resolution 2024-19, enacted a temporary moratorium on accepting applications for conditional use permits in regard to commercial renewable energy. And also in September of 2024, the Board of Commissioners gave directive to the Planning Commission Board for the research of 5 specific topics. One being to investigate the population density and residential density to determine feasibility. 2, to research and review surrounding counties who have a moratorium or who have banned wind turbines. 3, research into whether water usage and water quality are affected by the turbine bases. 4, decommissioning, determining the gap between landowner responsibilities and the agreements with the company and if the shortfalls of the county can help fill in. And 5, environmental studies, match the existing Article 27 with some of the voluntary conditions and an expedition's comprehensive development agreement to see if the conditions need to be added to the regulations and not just as conditions in that specific conditional use project or permit, sorry. So there's a memo in your packets dated March 27th. That memo addresses these 5 topics and gives a brief outline of basically the information gathered. This was talked about at multiple planning commission meetings. Information was brought back from staff, including myself, Russ Avey, and Brad Jantz, and discussed at the planning commission meetings. The planning commission members feel like the final memo was ready to be brought back to your board. So there, as you can see there, I don't know if you want me to go through this and discuss this briefly, or if you've had a chance to look through it. But that's the information that I feel you've requested us to gather and bring back to you.
I want to thank the committee for doing a good job and getting us the information.
Thank you.
And I just had one question. Somewhere in the report, it gave you a list of all the people who wrote letters against it. And if that counted right, it counted 18 total letters written by 6 different people.
Okay.
So I would say that's not very, a majority of the people are against it. It's been my original thing since the first. I assume this 18 is a good number because it came off your report.
Yeah, those were all the these were written comments that were submitted to me to give to the board. And since this was part of a directive from your board, these comments came back to you. There's not been a public hearing held on any of this information yet. So there was not public comment through the planning commission. It was not slated as a public hearing because it was just a directive for us to gather information and bring it back to your board. But these were all comments that were requested to be brought to you, so that's why those were included in here.
And the board has to give a recommendation now, whether they approve or disapprove.
This is
It's informational.
This is just information. This was requested by the Board of Commissioners before the beginning of the year. It was just research that was asked to be brought back.
I think all the areas that we asked for are there.
Okay.
It appears to me it's all been gone through
Okay.
thoroughly.
I do too.
Yeah. So I think going forward, I think we need 3 different topics. One is the Article 27 revisions as presented to your board. Go through that, make sure we're legal and all that. Proceed with updating the Article 27. I think I got a consensus.
That includes allowing the public to provide input into those regulations.
Through the normal process,
Okay, so,
you're gonna have to publish with the newspaper.
well, so there are a couple things that you have mentioned previously. So you did have one of the commissioners that drafted some suggested changes to the article. But the process would be, I mean, the board can direct the planning commission to review the article and to, and you can request certain changes potentially be made or considered. But I don't know that the board drafting that article is appropriate. And then, I mean, isn't that the goal?
Yes,
I just wanna make sure we procedurally are correct, so could
the
you
body you've
speak to that?
delegated the overall management, drafting, and all elements of what make up that article, or planning and zoning. Nothing wrong with going ahead and making these are things that I would suggest you look at. These are things that we have concerns about. As part of that process, when Sharon goes ahead and puts that together as an agenda, there would be the opportunity for public input in that process. But it all runs through there. They're the hearing body in that regard, and then they bring it back to you. You then have 3 options with regard to what they recommend to you. Reject it outright and send it back and say, no, do it again. You can accept it as it is, or you can accept it with recommendations for further modification. And in each instance, it still reverts after, other than acceptance, its entirety reverts back to them for further revision.
And then, as far as the process of referring something to the planning commission as a board of commissioners, would you want would you want like a vote as far
Yes,
as
majority
that,
vote.
that the commission as a board wants that to be
Your
done?
directives come from you as a body.
Okay, so if you want, has everybody looked at that document and everybody agree that that's what you want to refer?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's separate, so are we talking about, that's part of the memo, that was comparing what our Article 27 currently
Yeah.
talks about
What the difference are.
compared to what's already in the SWIP plan and the voluntary conditions that were imposed by the wind farm themselves.
Yeah, so that's not to do with the suggested revision.
So, yeah, I think we have 2 different topics going on, it's a little bit confusing, so,
And this is interesting,
yeah,
there's 2 different, so why are they different?
right. Yeah, so incorporating some of those,
Don't you
the
need the
things that were
numbers?
voluntary, that were more restrictive, you're interested in incorporating those into the current Article 27?
You know, if that's legal or a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay,
I mean, every suggestion isn't good,
right.
at least it hasn't been in my world.
So I guess what your board needs to do is come to a determination on it, on what points specifically you want the planning commission to address and through the process,
if any.
if any.
Thought it was spelled out pretty well. There's the red highlighted areas that were in the draft.
So are we talking about, I know Mr. Dirks presented a draft.
And we had the board consensus at the time to move forward, so.
I didn't.
I don't know
don't
if it
know
was
that was done.
directed.
It was just to be provided.
Provided.
Right, for the committee to look at.
So to be a directive, I
There's
think.
four of us. 'Cause
I think it has to
remember
be
the final.
Okay. So if you want them to do something specific with that, if you agree with what's on the paper and that's what you want them to specifically consider, if you could just make a motion to refer that to the planning commission and give them the directive of what you want them to do with it.
Consider those as changes.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I don't feel it's correct to let one man write all, the committee should be writing that. Or if you copied it, maybe there's a national association feeding you information. I mean,
I've spent the last year and a half researching what
well, yeah,
other people do.
yeah,
Um,
we just did a great
A
job.
lot of this comes from legislation that was actually presented at the state level that didn't get passed, but I mean, I didn't make this stuff up. And I didn't charge the county for doing it. I don't know what Russ Evie charged us for his memo.
Way too much.
Well, that was part of the directive was for the.
I understand.
third party.
I understand it. I'm just saying that I did this because I didn't want to send somebody else, pay somebody else to do a bunch of research that I've done for the last year and a half. So I took my time to do this for the county and provide a starting point to look at, something to give to the public, let the public decide if this is what they want in their county. And so that's why I put it together. I'm not saying that that's what we end up with. It's a starting point. It's something to let the public look at and let the public decide, because ultimately, the public has to have a say in what we do as a county, or we're dictators. And so they have to have something to look at. And so, like you said, Jonah, I think it's time that we move this forward, do whatever is necessary as far as advertising for public meetings, let the public come and take a look at this, let the public comment on it, and then move forward on revising the section.
So got a motion and a second.
Have you all had a chance to look at it?
Can I ask I know you're in the middle of a vote, but I wanted to just ask a clarifying question, if that's allowed. So if there is something that's within the proposed revisions, that's the starting point for them to start looking at, that is potentially not legally enforceable, is that something that the board then is supposed to be able to get feedback on?
Yes,
The planning commission would,
yes.
okay,
That's part of the review process.
okay,
Got to be certain that it's something that, in terms of the WEX and everything else that we're doing here, is going to pass muster legally for purposes
okay,
of institutional enforcement.
And that's planning commission.
Mhm.
right.
Because there are a
That's
few
what I
things
wanted.
in there that are not legally enforceable, so I just wanted to make
Potentially,
sure
maybe.
we weren't getting ourselves in a bind.
Right, okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
4-1. All right. Another issue is all the information brought back, I think it's too soon to do anything with that, because everybody needs to review it. Come up with, that's my opinion, come up with what that information means to you. Sharon brought us.
He's got it Friday, yeah.
Third issue is extending the moratorium, if something to keep in mind. If there's gonna be a lot of delays, something happening, we need to make sure we extend that moratorium, in my opinion.
We've got till September.
I would make a motion that we develop an extension to that existing moratorium for at least 2 more years. I mean, this was what Sharon brought back to us today was given to them in September. It's now April, that's 6 months. And in my opinion, that didn't involve any public comment. There was some public comment provided, but it wasn't solicited. And so to expect that in 6 months we could get through this process with solicited public input, I think is unrealistic. So I would make a motion that we develop an extension to that moratorium for a minimum of 2 years.
Do you want that on the next agenda?
I think most of this stuff's in play.
Yes.
It's pretty.
General consensus on the 2 years, or is there other input on that?
It's a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would second that.
You also need to consider totally banning,
And that's
I mean, we need the regulations.
Yeah.
we need the regulations, but and if we want to go to a total ban on any additional, I mean, you know, we've got 2 wind farms in this county. We're doing our part. I don't think that any additional is going to benefit the county.
You can kind of shut Marion County down as a place to start new businesses. People are gonna look at us, why would I go there?
You've already got people not wanting to move here because they don't. I've got people in my district that couldn't sell their house because people come to look at it and there's a wind turbine 5 miles away and they can see it from their house and they say, we don't want to buy this house. So there's.
Selling other place, yeah.
You got people at Marion County Lake that are upset because now that this is here and they didn't realize when this was going in that they'd be able to see them from their backyard. So.
We need to throw solar in there.
And we need to throw solar in there too, because environmentally, that's, although it's not as visual, environmentally, that's way worse. And if you guys wanna go with a complete ban, I'm perfectly happy with that, but
No way should the ban upset the apple cart as far as the reworking the.
I think,
yeah.
I think
Because-
that needs to be reworked.
You know, I see it in the Washington level, right? One administration comes in,
Yep.
executive order, next one comes in, removes the executive order. You still gotta have those safeties in
You
place
still have to have those safeties in place
for the health of
for the health and the safety of the people in the county.
So we wanna stick with the, I mean, there's a motion and a second on the floor. There isn't a moratorium, sense of urgency to get through Article 27 isn't really there. If you go with the ban.
When's the next meeting?
May 22nd.
Well, I agree with Clark, six months is probably not gonna, time you get public comment or however you're gonna handle it, 6 months goes in a hurry with these things. You know, we need at least a bare minimum of another year.
Got 2 years on the table unless,
My consensus would be for a year. I'd approve that.
Well, okay, so
So
you need
I'm
to
Take a
vote on
vote.
the motion that's on the floor, and if people don't want to do that, then they can vote against it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
3-2.
So that doesn't impose a moratorium, that just is to have it developed,
To have it brought to you.
because
Well,
that
for
would be
an
done
extension
through,
of 2 years.
that would be through a resolution, and that you would adopt.
From the termination of the current one or from now?
From the termination of the current one, an extension.
Is that 2 years from September or 2 years from?
So I was just asking, I'm told.
2 years
from
from
September.
September.
Adds 2 years to the one that's there.
So then when that comes back to you, that's when you would actually be voting on the actual moratorium.
Okay. Now. End of the game. Alright. Anything else for Sharon? Sharon, do you have anything?
Okay, so just to clarify, you want me to take back to the planning commission, your directive is to hold a public hearing to discuss the proposed language that was given to us in the red line draft from Mr. Dirks. And review it for legal components and things like that, of such nature. Okay. And then,
You want us to do it, or Sharon to do it?
They have to do it.
The
honestly,
board does it, yeah.
They have to.
we can
Sharon, it would have.
do that, however, I'm not an attorney, so, and neither is
In
our
terms of your
board.
review, you'd include advisability as well as enforceability.
Okay, so, all right, that makes more sense. And then your board, the commissioners, will review the memo and decide what you want to do with that information. And then also, there's a consensus to extend from the termination date of the existing moratorium 2 more years. That would go through September 2027, correct?
It's a formal vote to bring it back for consideration at the next meeting.
At the next meeting through resolution.
Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
So would it be plausible to incorporate some of the items from the memo into our considerations for the directive? I mean, if that's, yeah, okay. Okay.
Clear as mud. Alright. Anything else?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh.
It asks that the storage lease be put on.
Yeah. Chance to review that, Brad.
Did you send Marcy that updated one?
Yes.
Thought so.
Okay. Go.
She provided the map rendition, which had the measurements on it, which was helpful.
Okay.
Well, you mean the updated one after the questions I submitted, or?
No, just the first one that had the overall dimensions
Oh,
of the
yes,
area.
I have that.
I attached that as an exhibit.
I was just going to mention that if the board is wanting to move forward with with a lease agreement that I think that the document we have probably still needs some revisions to take care of.
I did.
Probably, yeah,
I don't think so. We were gonna disagree.
okay.
Other than the improvements, I highlighted the improvements in the lease term in particular. Those are two things we still need.
Did you address Marcy's questions or input on it?
No, that was after it had been
Okay.
provided.
So I was just gonna mention that if you wanted to move forward with the lease agreement, that perhaps you set an amount and set the conditions and then have staff finalize the lease agreement.
I wouldn't disagree with that, because we have the general list of what was discussed in terms of improvements, but no idea on cost factors yet.
And there was a problem, Dan went to go get into the building to actually measure the inside of the building, and the key that we have does not work on any of the doors. So he had to do it from the outside. Commissioner Beneke, do you have a door, do you have a key?
Do I?
Yeah.
No. We put new ones in when they fix them, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
Sorry, I didn't actually get a chance to in depth go through every.
Marcy, there's a guy in McPherson that can change keys for you.
Well, I think there was discussion on that.
All the locks ought to be changed before we get done with this.
They put complete new metrics in the doors.
Nobody knows how many keys are out there.
If you put new locks, you can get new door locks put on there cheaper, and you can get a guy from McPherson to come change it, so. And then you got new locks that you know who's got.
Latch deals are enough that if you jiggle the door long enough and hard enough, you
Get them open, yeah.
so that's why we're addressing the 3 walk-in doors to be all the same. Same locks, new mechanism.
Okay, so you want,
Just gonna put it out.
The only thing we would probably need to do is be more specific about this particular building, the name of it, the.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
And then the
I'm
cost.
just talking about the basic utilities of it.
Right, and then the estimated cost to make improvements that the county would want. You know, we did have some estimates last week. I think we have another quote coming that would be on the full job as far as the amending the structure for the 2 doors and doing all the chain hoists and then changing the door hardware. And I think that, so I had given that to you last time. There's another quote coming for that whole amount, but it looks like by the time we're all said and done, we're going to be spending potentially up to $20,000. So we would want to make sure that, you know, you set an amount.
Not to exceed at least.
Not to exceed for us to be able to utilize for improvements. And then also in the lease, it should say, if it doesn't, that that would be prorated off. So like whatever we put into the building up front, we would not pay rent for those. Until that is.
This is 3 years.
Right.
That way.
Right, so it'd be approximately 3 years before we would be paying rent. And then what is the term of this agreement?
I just picked 5 years to start with, and then it's renewable at your discretion. You
So-
can make that longer if you wish in this kind of a circumstance.
So that was those were the main things I just wanted to
This
make.
gives us a base that our upfront costs are covered in overtime, and that we maintain that building, which we need to anyhow.
Well, we
They're the
We-
landlord, so it's
we don't actually maintain, they take
Help
care of things,
maintain.
but we give them an allotment from our budget for their needs, for the fair, for whatever they use it for. So we don't
They rent
go out and put a shingle on the roof roof or anything like that.
rent
Of
the
course, I know it's
buildings
not,
in order to come up with the funds to maintain the facilities.
right.
And I would anticipate they would be specified as a beneficiary of any warranty as well, so that if a door malfunctions within the first 6 months, they can call just as readily as we can.
It'd have a warranty on it for longer than that, wouldn't
Or I'm just using,
it? Arbitrary.
Did get one estimate on construction panels that we were considering coming 12-foot length, 6-foot high.
For the fence.
Correct. With freestanding, my recommendation is if we bought 7 of these, we could even jog out 12 feet. One of the trailers or something stuck out further, which would also just support it freestanding when they're up. That quote from one of them there in Wichita, and the other one hasn't returned. One is about 18,013 was a quote they gave to complete 7 of the 12-foot panels with hardware to somewhat lock them together and be freestanding inside the buildings.
You want to have much for
That gives
yours
us a
now?
rough estimate of what
How
that
much
costs.
you want for yours, getting closer, huh?
you said that was.
I'm staying out of it.
I'm staying out.
$1,813.
Oh, I thought you said
You
eight.
said
He said
18,000.
that's what-
18,000, I was gonna say, well,
That's not gonna happen.
I can get somebody to build something cheaper than that.
We could reach it with 6, but I think 7 would give us a jog out or jog back, which would also help just the freestanding of them inside.
Right, I think you need something.
I think it's worth the 7th panel. And even if we ever put the tower outside, that would reach around it up to the building, you know, if we had it outside the building on the east side or something, we could still panel around it for.
I specified so far that we weren't doing anything outside the structure, so if we're thinking that that's realistic, then we may wanna make a reservation to write to some extent. I can make a general statement.
Normally, we wouldn't put it in there unless it came back or was working on it, but then we would still have them panels to protect it
Right.
without taking
But
it off
within the
site.
lease, we would need to reserve ourselves the
Ability
The
to use
ability
some
to
exterior
use
space.
space.
Yes, on the east side is, I mean, you can just, to access that, that's gonna be the easiest to pull in along the east side, pull out there, back in, pull out, whichever.
You know, one thing this contemplates that one didn't long ago, that when we were first negotiating with them, is that we're not moving anything. If they're having other events in there, they're having them in the other portion that's segregated from what we're using. And even during the fair, we're not pulling this stuff out and taking it somewhere else. It is there.
Just be if we had to work on the tower outside the
Yeah.
building and wanted it protected
I understand.
liability wise, we would still have these panels that would reach around it on the east side of the building too.
We can make that reservation as long as they find it acceptable.
I think they're, as I know Brian and them are fine with whatever we need to do there. So that's a what if situation. If we want a second quote, I'm just waiting for them to give it to me, I guess. That gives us a rough idea of what it is. What I would recommend that we use.
This situation is all too sticky for me, so I mean, I guess I'm just waiting on somebody over here to take the lead on whether moving forward with the lease agreement pending staff review, or not doing anything altogether, or
We need to get final quotes maybe.
We haven't got the final quote. There's another one coming for the whole job.
I don't wanna make it look like I'm trying to keep her where she is, and I'm not trying to make it look like I'm kicking her out, so.
The other one coming.
Well, we had that one from Spring, whatever,
Great.
Spring Creek. And then the other one, there should be a quote coming from another contractor. The other contractor does not really wouldn't have it necessarily as a high priority because they're really busy. But just so you had another idea of how much it would be, so. How much was the Spring Creek one? I don't know that.
13 to 14, somewhere in there.
It was 14,000.
Got
but it was
Albert's
turnkey.
door, Cheney
Yeah, just the
door,
Spring,
overhead door.
I had it on your sheet.
Spring Branch is 13,277,
Okay, that's the one.
and then Sturdyville.
Yeah, all those other ones don't, it's not for everything, so,
So there's another one coming.
for everything. But I suspect, just by talking with the contractor, that it may be higher.
And
Of course, we're government,
who's that?
Well,
8 times 2.
if they're busy, in order to.
Are they sending that
make a
directly
profit.
to you or?
I think so.
Yeah. But it's, it gets absorbent.
So what I was just gonna suggest is if there's a set amount that you want to authorize for those improvements to be put in, then we can,
I would make a motion, we move forward this rental agreement with the caveat with a limit of $15,000 towards improvements to the building, which will be prorated off our rent for 15,000.
until
Till it's
till it's
exhausted.
exhausted.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to figure out 15,000, that's, my brain ain't working backwards today.
16 months.
Divided by 500 is 30 months, so I would go with a 3-year lease agreement. That will cover that $15,000 investment. With the option to extend it if that works and continues to work for the county.
Second.
Had a little staff review in there.
With, based on staff's recommendation.
Yeah. And review. Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I think it needs to be a couple thousand more than that, but that's,
His quote was 13,000 and your quote's 1,800, that's 15,000.
almost 14, wasn't it?
It was 13,200.
13-2. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those abstaining? Aye.
Okay, now we can get it finalized and, thank you.
They have,
I promise, you either stay or leave, I'll start making decisions.
I just do what I'm told.
does anyone know, does that building have a formal name?
Commercial building,
Just commercial,
it's on the outside of it,
County Fairgrounds Commercial Building?
correct.
It'd have its own separate
Building 1, 2, or
address?
3, or?
Mm-mm.
Commercial building, foods building, and
4-H,
4-H.
that's the
And there's a-
commercial one.
Then there's pavilion, then there's another one down there on the south side. Pretty well occupied.
Saying I
No,
wasn't
no, that's
ready.
right. I
I was just,
just was thinking of the legal stuff I've already gone through.
sorry for, gosh.
You're actually right with the other stuff.
You don't let people around it often enough and let Tina jab you, and it all builds up. And then you get one big pack.
We would move ahead with a formal bid on the fencing.
Well, if you have the other quote coming, that'll be good enough, just bring them over.
I'll just have
Just bring 'em up.
officially print one up and that'll be, just the 2 is enough, you
That
think?
should be fine.
I'll make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
So, kind of all over the place. Anything else before we move on to Brad?
Okay.
Well, I kind of work in between you and Brad, I guess, but well, still got the executive.
Okay. 2 things. The remaining late unit, I've got the insurance element, I believe, resolved, and they're committed to, we're gonna remove it. We'll have it out on or before the last day of this month. They wanted a little bit of additional time, not just this week, but next week as well. So we'll get that out of there. They were gonna provide me with proof of the insurance yet today
What are you talking about?
at the lake.
Okay. I couldn't recall for the life of me who that was.
And as to the resolution that you passed on the bond requirements today, there will be a second one that basically is a blanket requirement for any other entities that are statutorily required or mandated to also do that. So we have an assurance that that will also be provided under the same circumstances, 100% of their next budget, and provided at least 30 days prior to the budget year beginning. Those are the only other two things.
What about, how does this affect us?
We just got that today.
Yeah.
And Matt from City of Hillsborough is gonna be on the agenda to come talk to you about that.
Okay, I just wanna,
Housing incentive district, yeah.
so it would have like a tax.
It would have a tax impact, right,
Yes, it will.
yes.
Try to do a summary of that thing.
It's a good thing, they're building housing. So it's equivalent to neighborhood revitalization, I'm sure, some kind.
It's more of a district, isn't it?
It is.
So is it
So
longer
like,
term?
they have a TIF district in Hillsborough, so this is something similar, but
Very
this
much
is
so.
pertains to residential structures. And TIF is tax increment financing, so basically, we don't levy taxes within that district. And so this would be something similar where the county would waive the ability to levy taxes within that district to finance their project, I believe. I haven't looked into this particular one yet, but.
That's the standard though, usually, that's right.
One other thing I would like to task some thought amongst the board and I know we can't just do it, but some kind of ride or umbrella that kind of works with, and maybe this is a lot of legwork with communities on something similar to neighborhood revitalization, where it's not that they're building a new building, but they're occupying a dark store or a dark building that we can get business back into, if we could provide some kind of tax incentive
So
that way.
cities can do that within their own jurisdictions through an economic development exemption, and there's a process for that. But if it's within the unincorporated areas of the county, then the county can do it. But if it's not, then the city has to do
That's
it.
correct.
Okay.
Home rule necessitates that the city do it within the jurisdictional limits of the city. We don't get to usurp that, or even, unless it's done by agreement. There are some instances where you can do some things jointly within the jurisdictional limits, but outside in the unincorporated areas, as Tina said, that's entirely up to you.
And I do have some information on that process.
Because we do, and we do have some stuff that's in the unincorporated area that comes to mind right off, so.
One really large one.
Yeah. And then there's some in the cities that would be nice to let them know that there's a solution.
We're getting a few more of the ones like along 250, whatever the heck it is, east of Hillsborough, like the gentleman who came in selling equipment at his farmstead, but on a kind of a separate area there. You're getting more and more of that inquiry as well.
If people want to be here, let's. We need to entertain them or help them. Just my thoughts. Anyway. Going on, we want to do commission comments now, or I guess that was kind of a commission comment.
Do you wanna do my executive first, or you wanna wait until?
The commission comments are done, we need to go right to the executive.
I'm gonna bring up, talking with Steve Friday, they had one of the pickups totaled out. And got another one that's pretty bad shape. Our talk is to possibly look at, our best value may be in one with a utility bed, some other lease that are good use pickups if we, as far as road and bridge pickups, good farm vehicles are gonna bring considerably more unless we go to a utility bid. There's, let's see. The person, Midway had just only one or two options. There's another lot that has about 6 good options, that type of vehicles, and if we need to, how soon. Summer work will be here and they'll need the one that's non-functional replace, and it'll take 30 days to probably make any type of decision. We'd like to get that on the agenda if possible. Get that taken care of.
So you all had said something about wanting to consider the fleet option. And so I do have that coming back onto the agenda for a presentation. Also, if you did the outside of that, that's fine, but we just typically what we do is we would have the department write up specs and do bids for any vehicles. So, and
Steve just asked me to get awareness that we need a couple pickups probably too, if possible. So, sure.
that is on the list for the fleet discussion. The particular needs of each department were looked at. So anyway, I just want a flavor.
But I don't want it to go sideways, if you kind of keep it flowing
Right,
in
I'm
a
trying to
direction.
do it as we're entering into our budget process, so.
I was sidelined enough on my own, so.
I mean, it's a good awareness for sure, yeah.
All right. So,
Commissioner Dirks, were you gonna say something?
No, I don't have anything.
Oh, okay,
Not this weekend.
it looked like you had something.
perfect. Tina gets another A+.
I'm not the only other one that mumbles once in a while.
I think we all do it on purpose, that way. I move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss hiring pursuant to KSA 75-4319B. Item number 1, for personal matters of non-elected personnel with the board, Brad, Tina, for
Probably 10 minutes.
10
is good.
minutes until 1:54. With open session. Zoom back in commission chambers following the closed session.
Second.
Second by Clark. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Alright, out of executive session, no decisions made. At this point, I'd move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss,
Here, I have it.
item number 2 for consultation with our attorney-client privilege,
Matters of potential litigation.
potential litigation pursuant to KSA 75-4319B with the board, Brad, Tina, for 15 minutes. Till 2:10. Open session to resume back in this room following the closed session. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. All right, out of executive session, no decisions made. Motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. 5-0. We are adjourned.